For 3 chapters, we've asked the same question. Why does the world refuse to value its greatest women? The forgotten queen. The underpaid MVP. The champion locked inside a foreign prison. This chapter turns that question completely upside down. Because the most talked about woman in the WNBA right now is not the best player. She's not an MVP. She isn't even a full-time starter. She comes off the bench, and she averages fewer than 9 points a game. And somehow, she is more famous than champions. Millions of followers. National endorsement deals. Lawmakers in Washington arguing over her. A viral meme that the whole internet copied. And a nickname that made her a hero to one half of the country, and a villain to the other. Her name is Sophie Cunningham. And her story forces the single most uncomfortable question in women's basketball, in the modern WNBA, what actually makes you matter, being great, or being loud? To understand Sophie Cunningham, start in Columbia, Missouri, in a family where competition wasn't encouraged, it was inherited. Her parents were college athletes. So was her sister. So were half the people at her dinner table. She grew up in a house full of women who bounced between sports, horseback riding, and helping bring in the corn harvest. Toughness wasn't a personality trait. It was the family business. And she took it further than anyone. She starred in basketball and volleyball. She earned a black belt in martial arts, and by her own family's account, growing up, she and her sister didn't exactly go easy on each other. Then there's the detail nobody believes the first time they hear it. When her high school football team lost its kicker to a season-ending injury, Sophie Cunningham put on the pads and became the kicker. She went 2 for 4 on field goals. She was never built to blend in. She was built to be the player the other team's fans love to hate. And that is exactly what she became. At the University of Missouri, she was a star, and a villain. Adored by her own crowd, booed relentlessly by every rival building she walked into. She averaged 17 points a game and played with a chip on her shoulder the size of the state. But the pros are a different world. In 2019, the Phoenix Mercury drafted her 13th overall, the second round. And in Phoenix, she landed on a roster stacked with legends. Playing behind names like Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner, Cunningham was never going to be the one taking the big shots. So she learned to survive a different way. Energy. Defense. A dependable 3-point shot. The dirty work. For 6 years, she was a role player. A good one, she even reached a WNBA finals. But she was a supporting character in someone else's story. If her career had ended there, most casual fans would never have known her name. And then, one trade changed everything. In early 2025, a 14 trade sent Sophie Cunningham to the Indiana Fever, the most watched, most scrutinized team in the entire league. The team of Caitlin Clark, the biggest phenomenon women's basketball had ever produced, and also its biggest target. Because as Clark's fame exploded, so did the hits. She was getting hip-checked, knocked down, shoved, and swiped at, game after game, and to a lot of people watching, the league was doing nothing about it. Cunningham saw it coming before she ever played a game in Indiana. And she said, out loud, that she intended to stick up for her new teammate. Most people treated it as a throwaway line. It was not a throwaway line. June 17, 2025. The Fever against the Connecticut Sun. All game long, Clark had been hounded. She got poked in the eye. A scuffle broke out. She got shoved to the floor. And the officials, in the eyes of the Fever, let it all slide. Then, in the final minute, Sophie Cunningham decided the message hadn't been sent. She grabbed Sun guard JC Sheldon and pulled her to the ground. Bodies collided. Players poured in. Cunningham was ejected, thrown out of the game. And in that instant, a 30-year-old role player became the most famous enforcer in American sports. The clip went everywhere. Overnight, her social media following jumped from the thousands into the millions. Endorsement offers rolled in. Her jersey started selling out. She had spent 6 years as a footnote, and one hard foul turned her into a headline. She hadn't scored a single point on that play. It didn't matter. She'd done something the modern internet rewards far more than scoring. She'd become a character. Here's where the story gets strange, and a little uncomfortable. Sophie Cunningham is not a superstar. She averages under 9 points a game. She's a specialist, a shooter, a defender, a role player. And yet she became one of the most followed, most marketable, most recognizable players in the entire WNBA. More famous than most All-Stars. More famous than some MVPs. She leaned all the way in, and in June of 2026, she produced the single most viral moment the WNBA had seen in years. It wasn't a dunk. It wasn't a buzzer beater. It was a finger. During a heated game against the Phoenix Mercury, Caitlin Clark got tangled up with veteran DeWanna Bonner, a former Fever teammate who had left Indiana under bad blood. When Bonner snapped at her not to point, Cunningham did the one thing guaranteed to make it worse: she kept pointing. Silently. For 22 straight seconds. Poker face. Never blinking. Until a staffer finally pulled her toward the bench. The internet lost its mind. The clip became the biggest sports meme of the year, recreated by NFL analysts, by celebrities, even by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Fans started a petition to make her pointing silhouette the new WNBA logo. Cunningham's own verdict. She called it the stupidest thing she'd ever done, and admitted she loved every second of how badly it rattled her rival. She built an empire off exactly that kind of chaos: fashion, tunnel walk photo shoots, lifestyle content, a podcast with millions of listens. But that level of fame carries a darker side. In 2026, a man was criminally charged with stalking her, and with threatening a security official who stepped in to protect her. The viral adoration, it turned out, came bundled with something genuinely dangerous. To her fans, she was loyalty in human form, the teammate who'd take a hit for you. To her critics, she was manufactured drama, a role player who figured out that in today's WNBA, being a villain pays better than being good. So which is it? Fierce, loyal protector, or a brand built on chaos? That question splits the internet in half every single week. And she has never once tried to settle it. Most players are careful never to criticize the league that pays them. Sophie Cunningham did the opposite. She went after the WNBA and its referees directly, on her podcast, in interviews, on social media. She accused the league of failing to protect its biggest star while cheap shots went unpunished. She once posted a video mocking the officials so bluntly the league fined her $500. Her response? She laughed it off publicly and asked whether the WNBA didn't have bigger problems to worry about. In 2026, that crusade detonated. After an opposing player drove a fist into Caitlin Clark's throat during a game, a blow the league later upgraded to a flagrant foul and a suspension, Cunningham unloaded. She said flat out that players were targeting Clark, and that the league and its referees were doing nothing to stop it. Then she turned on the WNBA's business itself. When the league put out a commemorative graphic and left Clark, the single biggest draw the sport has ever produced, off of it, while including role players, Cunningham called it a joke on her podcast. Her argument was brutal, and painfully self-aware. The WNBA, she said, refuses to market the very players who actually put people in the seats. She even named herself as one of the random players the league would rather promote than its own generational star. Sit with that for a second. It's the exact same accusation that has haunted this entire series, the league failing to value what's right in front of it, except this time it's coming from inside the locker room, from the most viral player in the sport. But the strangest twist in her whole story wasn't about basketball at all. As she became the face of the Protect Caitlin Clark movement, her fame took on a political charge she never asked for. Critics started calling her MAGA Barbie. A red hat she wore sent the internet into a frenzy. Conservative media embraced her. And eventually, a group of Republican lawmakers in Washington sent a letter to the league itself, invoking Clark's treatment and threatening a federal look into the WNBA. A bench player from Missouri had somehow become a symbol in America's culture war. Cunningham's own answer to all of it was blunt. She said she's right in the middle, moderate, not one side or the other, and pushed back on the idea that everyone has to be an extremist. But by then, the label had a life of its own. And here's the uncomfortable part worth sitting with: a league that couldn't seem to market its greatest champions had, almost by accident, turned a role player into its most bankable villain. Then, in August of 2025, it all stopped. A freak collision tore the MCL in her right knee and ended her season. "It's déjà vu," she said. She'd been broken before. The Fever fought on without her, all the way to a decisive Game 5 of the semifinals, where they fell, in overtime, to the eventual champions, Aya Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces. The best player in the world ended the season the role player couldn't finish. Two of our chapters, colliding on the same floor. But Sophie Cunningham wasn't done. She re-signed. She came back. And the noise came right back with her. And in 2026, away from all the on-court chaos, she did something much quieter that still went viral. She was baptized, publicly recommitting to her faith, a reminder that behind the meme was a person still figuring out who she wanted to be. Which brings us to the thread running through all four of these stories. We spent 3 chapters asking why the world refuses to value its greatest women. Sophie Cunningham is the mirror image, proof that in the modern WNBA, fame doesn't always follow greatness. Sometimes it follows loyalty. Sometimes it follows controversy. Sometimes it just follows whoever the internet decides to fall in love with, and to fight over. She may never be the best player on the floor. But she might be the most modern story in the entire league. So tell me in the comments, is Sophie Cunningham a loyal warrior the WNBA should be grateful for, or a sideshow the sport created and now can't control? I read every one. If these are the stories you want told, subscribe to True WNBA Stories. For chapters in, and we're only getting started. This is the history they never told you.